So good evening. I'm Kate Stein, and I'm on the steering committee for the Re-Envisioning of Burlington High School, along with Martine, whose last name I always mispronounce. Gulick, and Jim Holloway, and Sina Daly.
Excuse me.
We'd love to go around and just start with the introductions of everyone, since we have a small group, so we can kind of get a feel of who's in the room. And we'll start with Mark.
I'm Mark Barlow. I'm a school board member, but I'm also a parent with kids at Burlington High School and here at Hunt.
I'm Sonia Fuller. I'm a community member, but I have actually attended this school system, including this building itself.
Jim Holloway, a member of this committee.
I'm Tom Simon, and I have kids who go to Edmonds.
Kathy Rossman. I have a child in Hunt and a freshman in high school.
AJ Rossman, ditto.
I'm Eric Wells, the communications specialist for the school district.
Tracy Ruskell, principal of high school.
Marty Spalding, I'm the director of property services for the school district.
Michelle Hobbs, I have a son at BHS, my son at Edmonds Middle.
Hi, I'm Sina Daly. I have kids in the school, and I'm helping these guys stand out a little bit with this whole thing.
And I'm Martine Gulick, as Kate said. I have two kids who recently graduated from Burlington High School. I went through the Burlington school system, and I'm a resident right here of Ward 4, not too far down the street.
Ann Judson, Ward 4 school commissioner, and both my children went to Hunt and VHS.
Before y'all get started, can I just ask how, I think you said there are 4 of you on this committee?
Yes.
How did that form?
Going back to the history part, which we'll get to in the slide.
Oh, I can wait then.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll make sure, if I don't say it, tell me.
Okay,
Remind me.
great, thanks.
Our goals for tonight, basically, and I go off script a lot, so I apologize ahead of time, and I also walk in front of this camera a lot, so sorry. Basically, the goal of this committee is to present 2 plans to the public and to try to get some feedback and some commentary as to which one might be a better option, and ultimately present that option to the superintendent, and who will then do what he will do with it. I assume he would bring it to the school board, possibly the city council, and then I won't say much more about that. Kate, I know you don't want me to talk too much about that, but yes, so the basic goal is to try to get some feedback to pick one of the 2 options to present to the superintendent. And the video. This is a short video.
We have sound today.
This was, Jim Holloway had a lot to do with it. Thank you, Jim. And RETN as well. And Vicki Smith is the voice.
And Julius Dodson is the student.
Right.
And Eric.
And Eric
Marty.
Wells and Marty Spalding.
I feel like I'm in the way. I'm sorry, guys.
No, I don't.
If you hit I've got it queued up, Kate. If you hit escape from there, or
Okay. Oh, and then hit over here. I got it. I can't, I'm used to my math. Thank you, Eric.
It was 1964 when Burlington High School greeted students to its new campus just off North Avenue for the first time.
I don't know how to do that.
Here's a look at BHS today. The now 53-year-old campus serves a student population of just under 1,000. A lot has changed since the Queen Cities High School opened its doors. Multiple generations of students have called this campus their home, but now the building has reached a point where upgrades are desperately needed. Let's take a closer look inside. BHS is a collection of 5 separate buildings and 7 stories located on the side of a hill and connected by exterior ramped hallways. This makes moving around campus a challenge, most especially for someone with a mobility restriction. Classroom sizes vary at BHS, along with limited natural light, poor air quality, and temperature inconsistency throughout the facility.
in the winter time, it was the heater, like he didn't have control of it, so it'd get really hot, but you couldn't really like vent it or anything. Like you can't open the windows or anything. It got really cold.
Walk the halls at BHS and you will quickly be reminded the building is over 50 years old, and these lockers no longer suit the needs of students. A majority of the building's infrastructure is from original construction, leading to repair needs and energy efficiency loss. So, where do we go from here? Burlington students need a place of learning with flexible spaces where they can thrive. We need a school that we can all be proud of, a place that makes our Burlington community stronger. The time is now to re-envision our high school campus. Please go to our website to learn how to get involved.
Before we move on, Ellen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but we did do quick introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Ellen Zeman, a parent of a DHS graduate, class of
15?
15.
Okay. So we actually don't have a representative from Black River here tonight, correct, Marty?
John is on his way.
John is on his way? Okay.
So, the re-envisioning of Burlington High School has been going on for a little bit. We started in 2013 by hiring Black River Design, which is an architectural firm, to draw out some concept plans. And we also at that time had extensive input from faculty, staff. There was a committee with community members on it, as well as parents and teachers and administrators, all working on design directives, which you will see spread out on the tables, and we'll be going over those in detail in a little bit. The project was put on hold so we could do a capital needs assessment for all the buildings, and then in early 2017, the superintendent restarted the process, and in May of 2017 had a session at the high school and asked people who wanted to be involved who came to that, and that's how the committee we have now was formed. And there's also, besides the steering committee, there's a resource committee which is open to community members, and we ask them to help us, and they give us great input and ask a lot of questions. And now we're in the point where we are coming to you to show you what we've done so far.
Great. And we have a few not late, but arrivals. This gentleman here, this is your second time coming to one of these. We appreciate you being here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Ed McMahon. I live in this ward.
Great.
I also went to the other ward because I was interested in
Yeah, that was great. Thank
what
you.
they do too.
Thank you for coming again. Kathleen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Kathleen Lynch, Ward 4. Just happy to listen in, see what, as a taxpayer.
Thank you. You missed our very brief video, but we can show it to you after the fact. Yeah, and I'd like to point out too that although this work was started in 2013 and 14, I do believe that there's been discussion about upgrades to the high school for a couple of decades. I think it's been in the ether for quite a long time, just given the fact that, as you heard, there are 7 stories between the bottom of A building and the top of E building. There are ramps that are not super easy for travel and so forth. So it's been in the works for a while. So let's talk a little bit about the inherent challenges of the existing building. And people do like kind of a little bit of an orientation here. This is A building, for anyone who doesn't know, B, C, D, and E. This is the Tech Center, also called F building, I believe. North Avenue is over here, and Institute Road is here. So as we mentioned already briefly, in terms of getting around these buildings with the 7 stories and the pathways that bring these buildings together. It is difficult, especially for students with disabilities, but for any student to get around takes a long time. And in a typical high school, when you have like 4 or 5 minutes of travel time in between classes, this trip is I think probably impossible to make in 5 to 6 minutes. From my understanding.
Almost ran from the 3rd floor of E building down to the basement of A building today, and I made it between bells. But
Okay.
I was going quickly.
Right. And there are typically multiple elevators, multiple ramps, and sometimes one needs to go outside before being able to come back inside as well. The thermal envelope is low performing, and hopefully we'll have the architect here later to talk a little bit more about that. The grounds, as you can see, it is hard to secure a school that has all of these separate buildings and all of these courtyards. There's an excessive number of building entrances.
Can I ask a question about that? Is that okay to do that now, or do you want me to hold it?
Yeah, we're kind of hoping to hold most, but yes, it's
can
okay
wait.
to chime in.
Well,
It's
so I'm
really relevant.
So I'm just curious. Maybe it makes sense to hold it. I'm just curious because you can't just have one egress point in a school. So you're going to have a school, no matter what school, new or revamped or old, you're going to have multiple doors that go to the outside. And so I don't understand that point, I think of, because those doors are locked. My son tried to put some stuff he was dropping off for school this morning in one, and it was locked. I'm just confused about the non-secure piece of the grounds and how that would be different. And we can talk about when we get to the new building
There's
designs.
some safety issues with some of these exits right now. Like, if you were with a mobility challenge and you were to leave out of C building, you encounter a hill and nowhere to go.
But that I get, but that doesn't have to do with security. That I understand.
I think right now, best practice is,
6 buildings, you have a lot more. Even if you have one building, it will have less entrances and exits than 6 buildings.
Okay.
And one of the ways we're going to address the safety and security is to have up-to-date electronic access control on all of the doors versus, we do not currently have that now.
Right.
Could that be installed on the school? Correct. It could be, but at an expense.
And that is a safety issue, but nonetheless, okay, crumbling infrastructure, you saw images of that in the movie, in the film. Outdated electrical, plumbing, sewage, these date to 1964 or thereabouts. Outdated room design, I think you can imagine that teaching in the 1960s was typically a teacher with a blackboard and 20 or 30 students in individual desks with chairs. It's a very old school type of teaching method, the lecture, fill the empty vessel with knowledge kind of thing. That is no longer the case. Education has obviously grown and evolved from that model. So the rooms tend to be outdated. They really are kind of these inflexible, singular spaces, as you've probably seen if you've been to Burlington High School. And the tech infrastructure, Wi-Fi, phone, security, electricity, again, 1964, and it's 2017, and we need Wi-Fi drops, we need high-speed internet access and so forth to really be keeping up with technology.
We need more than 2 outlets in the room for the one-to-one technology that we have.
Really?
So the way things are compartmentalized now, you've got A building holding music, art, athletics, and administration. B, you've got art, world language, and you have the library. C, humanities. D, health, consumer science, and learning lab. And E, way up that building on top, science and math. So as we said before, what we're hoping for is a building with a layout that produces or certainly encourages much more of an interdisciplinary approach to teaching, reflects personalized learning, and is very adaptable for the future in terms of technology and pedagogy. We don't know exactly what the future holds, but we would like a structure and a building that is adaptable, including the classroom spaces. And we also put proficiency-based learning in there, which again is a very different model from the lecture model of the 1960s.
So design directives, as I mentioned earlier, in 2013-14, a varied group of people got together to work on design directives. And I'm going to just read them and do a little bit of commenting with Martine chiming in. So one was to reduce travel paths and condense instructional areas so that you didn't have it going all over the place to get to where you need it to be, to simplify accessible routes, to create single entrance and drop off for security entry points, create space for academies, decentralize individual academic departments and centralize faculty offices. Right now, people who work together in the building don't particularly always get to see each other. There's always seems like they're new faces, but it's because they're so isolated. Address facility needs for the On Top program, enlarge the cafeteria space, create a new image and public facade for the school. Provide additional physical education and community athletic facilities.
Are these photographs of the existing school, or are this what we
these
hope it's
are-
going to be? I was going to say, it looked pretty nice.
Yeah, they do. Good question, Tom.
We would like to have them.
Yeah, I was thinking, wow.
Can you imagine going?
We got a
into
good starting point.
We want to be able to provide athletic support spaces, meaning training room, changing rooms, locker rooms for visiting teams would be nice. And we want them to be accessible to the ball fields. Provide additional stage support space. The current theater has been upgraded recently, but the backstage really hasn't, and it's very tight. And to have a drama production getting all ready and having the band concert is quite challenging to fit everything there. And provide informal student gathering spaces like the one you see in that middle picture there. Currently, there's a little bit of hangout space in the lobby and people use the cafeteria. Address the deferred and preventative maintenance needs. Marty, correct me if I'm wrong, but currently over the next 10 years, if we were to stay in the building we are in, there'd be $27 million of deferred maintenance that needs to be done to the current building. Complete the mechanical, electrical, plumbing upgrade. We'd also like to house property services at this facility. And the big one, reconfigure classrooms for greater flexible and interdisciplinary learning.
Yeah, so just a few things to highlight here. People might not realize property services is not housed at the high school. It is in a separate location. Also, in terms of the athletic facilities, it would be really, really nice to have a second gym for everything from unified sports teams to the community often needs another gym. We're always hurting for gym space, especially with Memorial Auditorium being questionable now. So in terms of the community, that would also be great. And there was something on the other slide I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, just the fact that the school is so vast and so compartmentalized into these separate buildings. It is not great for the morale of the teachers and the faculty to be so isolated. It's really hard for them to be a cohesive unit when they can't meet up on a regular basis in that school. If you're an E building, you're probably not coming into contact with A building teachers very often. So what are the proposed concepts? So we will show you the evolution that happened from 2014 to 17, or we'll at least try to do that. But basically the way it's sugared off is that there are two options at this point. There's a 2017, we're calling it a 2017 partial demolition with renovation and expansion, or 2017 new building, a completely new building. And we will show you how that has morphed, or how it's evolved. So in 2014, and again, hopefully you're all kind of oriented here with North Avenue here, Institute Road. The plan was, and please feel free to correct me or chime in if I slip up here, but this is A building, and the plan was to demolish, as you can see, all of the other buildings and add on a large structure to A building that would go, or would have gone into the parking lot. This obviously, you know, we lose all these buildings, which some people would say is great, but we also, in this design, lost the tech center, which people decided that was actually a pretty big deal and maybe not the best idea. What was decided with this option is that it wasn't really solving two of the main problems, because you still had isolation from teachers and students who are on this side of the building versus this side of the building. You had a long travel time from end to end, and this large A building was not really being wrapped, or was not being dealt with in terms of the thermal envelope. So the way this evolved was it ended up looking like this. So instead of a large structure jutting out this way, classrooms and other learning areas, teaching areas, and offices are actually put around A building. B building is kept, F building is kept, E building is a question mark, may be kept, but C and D would definitely be demolished. And there would be a new facade put on this side of the building, a brand new facade. So this met the needs a little bit better. Travel time would be more condensed, workspaces, classroom, everything would be a little bit more condensed, and it would be easier to get around. And again, if John comes later, he can.
John's here.
Oh, John is here. Hi, John. Sorry. He snuck in.
I will add, Martine, also that
Yeah.
the cost option for the first option was significantly higher than this option.
Okay. So this option was actually higher than the option that.
And that was mostly due to the fact that we're completely tearing down all of the, tech center programs, and in this option, we're salvaging many of those.
Right. Yep, so what do you end up with? Well, I kind of already talked about a lot of these, but basically you do end up with one main secure entrance. Because you've demolished these buildings, you've gotten rid of the various courtyards and so forth. It's easier to, in terms of insulating this one building versus insulating all of those buildings. You've got a new community athletic facility. The learning spaces are flexible, they're modern, they're up to technological codes. And as I said, we have a new facade, upgraded thermal envelope, improved energy efficiency with new mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. And the projected cost at this point is $58 million.
Is the front considered the east side?
Yes.
Yeah. And the tech center would be a separate building?
Yes.
It remains the building that it is now.
Right, but right now it's kind of connected, but if you take away C or D, I can't remember which one it is.
It is, it's connected right in here.
Adding a connection there.
It's actually a like a
That
more
would be an
compact
addition.
connection.
It would be a connection directly from what's typically the front entrance of the tech center, though it's not used as a front entrance, directly to the cafeteria.
This is actually a better design in that right now students are dropped off in this kind of strange parking lot over here.
Yeah.
And they walk, instead of going into the building, they walk outside to the tech center, whereas now they'll be coming in here, and there is a fairly direct, hall, more or less, to the tech center. So it would be an improvement. Yes?
One question about did you say E-building's way at the top?
Yeah.
Is that the science building?
Yeah, science and.
Okay, so how many levels are we talking any additional levels on the new section?
Here?
Yeah.
What was it going to be, 4, John?
The
same
4 that are there now. What I'm wondering is why can't you get rid of that E building up there and just incorporate it into the new, even if you have to build a new level?
So we're not
Because
salvaging E building for high school program purposes. So we're proposing that we may decide to keep E building for other school district programming. And it'll be a more isolated building to be used for.
But science would be in the main building.
Science would be in the main building.
So, Ed, what you're suggesting is what we're planning.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. What I was thinking was that where I went to school, you had your science, your math, your chemistry, all in the same area. Kids that are studying that at that level, okay, college all the way, all right? And they're all together. And so the teachers. And that was an important part of the structure of that school. And that's when I went to school. And those schools are still there.
And are you saying that's a good thing? or
I
not?
think that's a good thing if you incorporate those in the same area.
Okay. So one of the things that some schools have done, they've gone to, for example, a freshman academy. And in a freshman academy, you have, let's say your freshmen sort of together in one part of the school. And there you have everything. You have math, you have science, you have English, you've got, so it's very interdisciplinary in that sense. That is, I would say, more of a kind of
Just
a
the way
modern
they designed
approach.
it when I was there.
Yeah.
Before I even got there.
Right.
It was designed that way.
Right.
It wasn't set up to look like a college, even though it could look like this.
Right.
Okay.
I think the modern pedagogy points more to interdisciplinary kinds of work with what the students are doing. I know, I grew up in the same way. Math was over here, science was here.
We can't trust our students, who can we trust? But anyway.
But thank you for the input.
E-building, what would they plan to use it for? If you're not gonna use it.
There's lots of initiatives being proposed in the district, and it's just not something that we've nailed down at this point of the design concept.
Storage maybe?
But what kind
No,
of,
not
what
storage.
kind of options?
So, we have proposals for, let's say, a new world language program.
Okay.
We've got a couple of alternative programs that we're currently leasing space for, like at St. Mark's over here. One option could be to move all the central office staff.
Yeah.
Another option could be to have a preschool center. So
Yeah, and
there's
so-
a
and-
need for these separate programs that would not fit into
Right.
the footprint of the high school, so they'd have to be in a standalone
And
building.
let me just
Why?
remind you too, that tonight is not the night for details.
Right.
and
Oh, I
for
wasn't
getting into the
I was just
nitty-gritty,
wondering,
but-
if we're gonna pay taxes on this, and we're gonna pay, and loans and all kinds of stuff's gonna come in, and taxes are gonna go up, we wanna know what we're paying for.
Absolutely.
And that, to me, when you said the other buildings were kind of far away for everybody to walk back
Right.
and forth, look where that is.
Right,
That's way
I
out.
completely agree. But remember, tonight is really the night that we're just kind of looking
Yeah, I
at two
know.
options and hopefully
I
presenting
just
one
can't,
too.
I can't see
How
keeping
is that?
something if you're gonna incorporate everything else
And I'm
down
not
there.
sure that's been set in stone, that E-building would
That
even
could be-
be
that
kept.
could be
I think
destroyed.
it's just an idea. It's this first
Well, this whole
phase.
thing was an idea, and it looks like people wanna put it on the ballot as fast as they can. So,
Not yet.
so-
All right, so we shall continue.
So in 2014.
Sorry, go ahead. I talk too much.
The concept of a new building was, this is still North Avenue, this is Institute Road, and to put the new building on the ball field. In this design concept, there is the high school and the tech center, and as you can see, those are two borders. There's also the cemetery over here and the field there. And it morphed into, because we wanted more detail with this, we wanted to be similar to the drawing you just saw. Same location, but with tech programs integrated in on where the blue is. I'm right, yes?
Can that be blown
Yes.
up?
And still to a central core, which would have the gymnasiums and the theater, and I'll just give it a little bit of thought there. So brand new building, meets all the design directives. There'd be little to no impact on student learning because it'd be being built while everyone's still over at the high school. It does improve accessibility, it does consolidate travel, it would have the secure entrance, modern flexible spaces, new community athletics. It puts you really close to the football, soccer, track place. And it has the new public facade and image. It has a thermal upgraded envelope, and it improves the efficiency of the energy, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems. It is set down. It would still be 4 stories in the plan right now, and it'd be nestled in between all those natural barriers. So if we were ever to a point where we needed to expand the school, there's nowhere to go outward.
Where's the baseball field going to go?
Yeah, we don't know.
It should stay there. We don't want, I wouldn't want to use that field for school buildings.
One of
So
the,
we're gonna, let's keep moving, and
Place
then
to
we'll
put
keep
We have a discussion time. at
We
the
have
end.
discussion time where we want your input, so.
Comparison.
Comparisons, I am a visual learner, so I like to put things side by side. As you can see, the estimated cost, it's partial is about 58 million, the new building about 84 million. The impact on students is minimal for partial and least impact for the new building. Both of them meet all the design directives. One of the pros for partial renovation is it is the lowest cost option. We know the site is stable because there's a school on it right now. It maximizes the existing space. As I said, it would keep the theater, which had been redone fairly recently, the gymnasium and the cafeteria, as well as some other programming space like the where they do the airplane stuff. I forgot what that's called.
Well, the tech center.
It's part of the tech center. And it keeps our existing boiling plant. We haven't talked about that yet, but behind E building, there's a G building, and that's where our wood chip building plant is and the source of where our heat comes from right now. And it's fairly new and was fairly expensive. The cons to partial renovation is, as there would be in anything, is unforeseen costs. It's not all new. It will feel like new, but it won't all be new. There's potential environmental concerns with demolition, as there would be con with the other one, and potential disruption for moving students around. Pros for a brand new building are it meets all the objectives and it's brand new. Cons could be the proximity to North Avenue, that we have to move the existing boiler plant. There are potential stormwater issues with the baseball field site. It lacks future expansion options. It displaces the ball fields, and unknown use and possible demolition of existing buildings. Those are still just question marks. Now questions. AJ.
Actually, I think this was a question for Marty. So, I've actually over the last decade or so been involved with a number of large schools, green schools down in North Carolina and other areas. One thing I would really recommend is daylighting in any of the designs. I mean, it's just it just makes the school great. It saves a ton on energy, and it costs less, rather than some of the fancier technologies. It's just sunlight and putting the windows in the right place.
Can I ask a question about that? Wait a minute. Is that going to be hard to achieve especially with the new school, with it being 4-story, and maybe the renovated old school would be the same, with it being stacked up on top of each other with that daylighting goal?
So our architects here who probably can answer that better than me. However, that is a design goal in both options.
Okay, I just wanted to make a quick comment. The questions I had, though, is just to get my heads around, how many square feet are we talking about?
275,000-ish.
Yes.
For the campus is
Yeah,
275?
both buildings are pretty much the same at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, existing is about 245, so slightly bigger than the existing footprint, but not much.
Okay, 250, okay, 245.
I couldn't agree with you more about the daylight question, though, and that's why I think some of us are excited about the renovation scheme that we've got on there, because it puts the classrooms around the outside of what are right now huge expanses of exterior wall that have almost no windows in them.
Okay.
So this allows you to put a corridor next to that, and then your learning spaces with daylight.
Yeah.
And in fact, the new building option is set up similarly with those windowless spaces in the center that are tall, that don't need so many windows, and the learning spaces kind of wrapped around the outside.
So the renovation idea though is kind of on the high ground, whereas the building a new building it's sunk in there.
It is sunk in there a little bit, and we pushed it back so you can kind of get some light wells in and get daylight in there. But I think you're perceptive to think that the higher the building up above the ground it is, or above the surrounding areas, the more access you do have to better daylight. But there still would be daylight. It's, as Marty knows, who's worked with me, that it's a very important thing in my mind.
Ellen has a question she'd like to ask.
Can we see a little more detail on the new building design? It's just a shell right now. So my question would be, going back to the renovation. I'm popular right now. Yeah, so the library is green, yeah. If I were going to design a learning space from scratch, I would start with what we used to call the library and build the learning around that. So I was kind of wondering what the new building would be.
Someone said almost the exact same thing the other night, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
That sentiment was echoed, yes.
Anyway,
And these are just concepts, nothing's exactly where it's gonna be yet.
It just, I have a lot of personal biases against the renovation, coming from a place where I, know that this is not an accessible building for kids with disabilities. It's a really difficult building. And kids who've been in there have found it to feel kind of like a jail. That's what the kids say. It feels like in there. What's at the center of this building is a gym and an auditorium. They're two closed spaces instead of the center of the building feeling like an open, accessible place for learning. And, we were talking about how learning, when we were growing up, we went to, had our different silos of where we went to each subject. Today, when we train people for going into the job market, people are doing work interdisciplinarily, which means they're bringing people who have knowledge from all different areas, and that's what we're trying to kind of teach our kids. And so to have a place that is the hub of learning, the library, which is kind of the center of knowledge, technology, building materials, design materials, be at the center is what makes sense for the way our students are going to go out into the working world and do their work.
I think you're making some very good points. Some of the challenges in designing schools, and definitely comment on it, is the fact that that center hub doesn't necessarily allow you to have that natural daylighting. So because you're building a space surrounded by classrooms, you want to have those spaces be functions that don't need necessarily natural lighting, such as gymnasiums and auditoriums. Whereas a library, it would be nice to have some natural lighting in the library area.
AJ?
So I think an important thing as we look at this, I mean, if we're talking numbers at all, is not necessarily the, what the total cost is, but it's really what the total operating cost is, including the financing for this. How much do we spend on energy a year right now for BHS?
I don't know my electric cost. I just know this piece because it just went out to bid. Our wood chip, we spend roughly $6,800 a year on heating fuel and on wood chips and another. 68,000.
Oh, okay.
The 6,800
sounds
We're building a wood chip for our house, right?
That's right.
Okay. And I'm just wondering, because, with the newer building, you can get better efficiencies and newer mechanicals at a lower cost. It'd be interesting to look at that cost. Is that going to come down? I mean, are we looking at apples to apples here? Because really, if we look about, budgets and taxpayers and everything like that, we have to know how much it's going to cost us, not necessarily what the price tag is.
So we haven't done any energy modeling yet to determine what those savings might be. Lots of times, some of those savings are gobbled up when you're doing additions. So if you're have 250,000 square feet and you're now going to have 275,000 square feet, you now have to heat more of that space. There'll be more pieces of equipment in there that use more electricity. Mm-hmm. So that's sometimes part of the factor in the energy savings, as well as the other very important factor is probably many of the spaces that are currently at Burlington High School don't provide the appropriate outside ventilation air. So typically when you provide that appropriate outside ventilation air, there's a greater cost to do that, because you're taking that air and heating it. But you're making your building occupants more comfortable and more healthy.
Yeah.
And legal, yeah.
And legal, correct.
I have a question.
Can John chime in real quick on, he wanted to make a quick point.
Well, yeah, it involves the new building that people are talking about, and I'm strictly against it, because I don't want to lose in that particular area. And I know you mentioned it a few times, and it's a great idea to have a brand new building, because everything is going to be brand new, on top of the art.
Well, does it have to be on the hill? I mean, if
Well,
it's brand new,
just saying,
can it be?
down in the baseball field and area?
Yeah.
Over the years, we've paid a lot of taxes and a lot of money to keep the sports in that area. Losing that, and putting a building down there, we're gonna lose the baseball field, lacrosse field, soccer, everything. We're gonna lose all, and there's other teams that play down there when they
Yeah.
get a chance to. They don't really have a place to practice. So, and then we're gonna go look all over the city for a place to play baseball and lacrosse.
That's a good point. You'll
You
be able
know,
to
the busing
add
alone
that
is
to your
costing a
comments
fortune.
later. Did you want to say something?
No, I just imagine that's part of the conversation, like, they
Yes.
wouldn't disappear, they would just, you know,
There's
what
no
happens
place in
to
the city.
the old
There's no place in the
site.
city to find a baseball field.
I mean, it's a
I'm
good-
with,
it's a
I'm with
good
Little League,
question.
I'm with
Good
Little
question.
League. And we tried to find baseball fields just for Little League kids, and there's no extras.
Right. That's a good
In the
point.
city.
Thank you for sharing that.
And that's
John,
just
did you
baseball.
wanna-
Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the energy efficiency piece here and comparing the two buildings. I was going to say, Ralph, there's 5 components to that energy usage. One is the boiler plant, which we're not going to throw away that wood chip boiler that you guys have spent. So we're either going to keep it where it is in the renovation scheme, or probably take the equipment out of that building and put it into the new building. So it's going to cost you the same to create the hot water that's heating the building. There's the ventilation, as Marty was talking about, and because it's in such bad shape in the existing building, whether we do the renovation or the new building, it's going to be new equipment, and it's going to be the heat exchanger, air-to-air, energy recovery units and whatnot. There's a control system, which right now it's an inadequate control system. We're going to put in new direct digital controls in either building. It's going to be the same system in either case. The lighting is another place where you spend a tremendous amount of lighting. In either case, we're going to put new LED lights into this building. The daylighting is a corollary to that. So the one spot where there's probably a little difference is in the building envelope. And yet we're putting a new roof on the entire building, on the new or the existing, so that's the same. The windows need to be replaced, so the windows are going to be the same windows in each place. So the brick wall with not that much insulation in it is what's going to stay in some areas on the existing building. But it's very airtight, so you're not getting a lot of air leakage out of those brick walls. And we're covering up a tremendous amount of that brick when we surround the gym and the auditorium with classrooms. So there's very little of that old wall is still there. So I think that yes, in theory, you'd have a little more energy dollars spent on the renovation scheme, but it's going to be a very small difference.
Okay. I was just curious as far as.
So anyway, those are great questions, and I think those are the ways you should be looking at that.
That's 2/3.
So some of us are sort of attached to the 2014, if you could jump back, and just a question for John, the renovation. I thought we talked about these just being concepts, that this version or this type of building could potentially still be the renovation, or like a renovation, or like going in this direction as opposed to wrap around, or is that not?
Well, again, we're really trying to compare the new versus how
Yeah.
good a renovation scheme could be. And if it were chosen that you wanted to use a renovation scheme, the design process is still in an embryonic enough
Yeah.
stage that we would look at multiple options for that. Right now, I feel like, that wraparound scheme is the best place, but we would have to look at that closer. And it might be some hybrid between there, where
Yeah.
it pops out a little more, you don't keep the B building.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
But it would all be evaluated in the same way that we've spent evaluating these.
Okay. And the 2014, it does have, because I think we said, or you said, the tech center goes away, but it's just in there. I mean, it's not gone away.
No, it still exists.
It
Those
still
students
exists. Okay.
need to be served.
Yeah, just so people know, it would be in this. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
So we're going to take 1 or 2 more questions, then we have an activity for you all to do. Okay, I see 4 questions.
1, 2, or 4.
4 really quick ones. Okay, go ahead.
So I'm sorry if I missed this before. You said that the impact would be minimal for the partial renovation, or where would the students learn? How is that partial? I mean, how is it minimal?
Tracy, do you
Sorry.
want to talk about this part?
Yeah, the primary academic instruction currently happens in buildings B, C, D, and E, which would be remaining during the construction.
Okay. Great. And, sorry, where are On Top and Horizons?
They're in A building. On Top is in A building. Horizons is currently at St. Mark's offsite.
And that would be,
St.
the
Mark's.
plan is to reincorporate those, or keep those, and bring Horizons back
The
into?
On Top program, the Horizons program, I don't know what the plan
Not
is for
sure.
that,
Okay.
but that was a potential option for E-building.
Great, thank you.
Tammy?
I had two quick questions. One, like, how green is the building going to be? And are you planning on using solar or anything like that?
I don't think we're there yet, right?
It's going to be as green as we can make it with the budgets that's approved.
All the new glass that's going in, should that be,
Yes.
at the top of- Yeah.
It should, yes.
And then
I
at
mean-
dark, at night it would stay dark, and in daytime it would be.
Right, and
not
again,
enough
you know,
light in.
those are pieces where we would do some energy modeling to see whether the cost to actually do that actually saves enough money over 50 years of life to actually save that. And again, you can decide whether you want to do it or not. But that'll be because we're replacing the windows, for example. That would be the same question on each one, so we really haven't gotten too deep into that. Really been trying to focus on the differences, like you've pointed out with, you know, the ball field and whatnot, that what's different between this option and that. Big difference.
Kathleen, do you want to say something?
I was just going to make a minor plug for the drama program, only because I have a little new reality in helping with some sets in the last couple weeks. So a lot of set work got set up and done, but then much of it had to come down for the concert to accommodate the concert the other night. So it's almost like double work for the people that are there in the evenings working hard to get ready for the musical in 2.5 weeks. But so I have a little appreciation for what they do now, really in setting up these really huge pieces, and then they had to get them all backed up, you know, and be ready for the orchestra, et cetera.
Have you seen the place that we have in this building in the school?
Yes.
The auditorium?
Been here for
That's
quite a
huge.
while.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other question was, I can only imagine that there are elevators in the new renovation model here all around, very much be, you know, easy access.
Right at the front entrance.
Will there be multiple
But
elevators?
multiple, like, as you wrap the gym and the auditorium, they must be.
Yeah, we-
To
Well-
code, they must have to be added in.
There are 4 elevators existing in the existing building. One of them is in E building, so that one obviously wouldn't be in play anymore.
Talk about just the new, not the old. How
Yeah,
would-
well, but, so again, we'd have to find out exactly where the exact right place to put those are. I think there would still be at least 3 elevators in that building, just for convenience sake. Some of those are going to be existing that we're going to keep, and I think we'd want to add one right there in that front lobby so that there's easy access to everyone coming in and out of the building to get up and down right away.
There's no elevator in what you're keeping.
Yes, there is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the A elevator by the
A elevator.
And also the one in B
B
building.
elevator and the B elevator.
Right.
And
But
and
in
the
the-
one in F
And
building
F
as well.
building.
But also in the Reno, that because that would be reshaped, we had talked about 2 new elevator paths because you're now creating more of a square. So that was so while there is the current elevator scenario to map that huge footprint, the elevator footprint would change even in the Reno.
I hope
Because
so,
so
because if
it would
the
be-
elevator
yeah.
broke, it made part of the school inaccessible.
Yeah, so.
I mean, I've
Living
never.
the dream now.
Well, they're inspected every so many, so it's gonna break, it's gonna break.
Yeah, but that means a kid
I was
cannot
just gonna follow it,
participate.
I've never needed one to
We
go
have
like
snowed
from
in.
the main area down to music, but is there one available to get people, you know, I mean, it is.
Yes.
Right down the chorus room
It has to be,
Go all-
but
But
I
you
just-
can't quite get to all the levels of
Yes.
the basement with
Yeah.
that one elevator without going outside.
right.
Like you could
It's-
get into the band room, but you have to go outside to come back in to get to the chorus room.
Yeah, we have to get rid of that, you know what I'm saying? So there should be there should be no
Yeah.
barriers,
So one
you know,
last
to
question,
this new
and then
design.
you're gonna have an opportunity to talk.
Very seamless.
So if everything went way more smoothly than anything in Burlington ever does, what year would we be opening up this new high school?
Oh, gosh. I'm gonna get confused now
So-
on that.
So I think
Keep going, I'll get back to
The
it.
earliest we would be breaking ground would be the summer of 2019.
Oh, that's not very long from now.
Both
Yeah.
options would be a minimum to 18 to 24 months, that the renovation could be slightly longer.
Okay.
That's right.
I'd like to just mention one more thing, so we're on the question part of it.
All right, and I'm going to let you speak, but it's my job tonight to make sure that we're all on target. So go ahead, one more time.
I
Yep.
just feel that people are not listening.
Okay.
Because when it comes to the sports of the school, kids thrive on that. And if you put a building where the fields are, and have to look for fields that don't exist in the city, and I can tell you they don't, okay? The areas do not exist.
You need to
That
make sure
plan
you
would
vote
not
for the
work.
renovation, not the new building.
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
the new building down in the baseball field should not be even mentioned,
Okay.
shouldn't even be an option.
So, there are computers on the desks and tables in front of you. So our hope right now is that you will entertain the idea of breaking up into smaller groups, opening up those laptops. There is a Google form on there. There's a Google form that's going to ask you to put down
We'll all
the
work
pros
together.
that you see for the building, the two
They're not-
building
they're not
concepts, the cons.
I'll step back.
If you'd like to add anything from a design
Well, I'm
perspective.
yeah, so I'm trying to listen, right, as opposed to give it.
I like your information.
The other question I wanted to ask, so it was mentioned early on in the presentation that creating files was put on hold while they kind of.
I was,
I'm very sensitive to that. I live on North Street. I'm not having a property going to be built as a new project, so they're putting it all
I think the biggest problem.
I felt like
that can stay there. The question is, can't they do school to build school to get around the school where it's at? Build a half a new one, they go back.
Thank you.
Not too bad.
Understanding how well kids are
Tiles.
and I'm really trying not to show it.
But the one, I sort of feel like that high school, I think the high school is a disaster. But the one great thing they have is the playing fields, you know? And this would muck up the one really good thing we've got. And, you know.
Why we don't just build a 50s kind of building, where it's just a rectangle and you go up. But the middle.
We're not using the word vote, but we're using the word, if you're leaning towards one direction or the other, we'd like to get your opinion on that. If you came to another community meeting and already gave us your opinion, I'm gonna have you not do it again, so we get more accurate numbers. But if you were at, like I know these two were at Friday, but they didn't fill out their sheet, so they're doing it today.
Oh, you caught us, huh?
You better check their finger.
I'll compare handwriting. And they can come in, they can go in this manila envelope.
Kathy, what are you?
Also, a couple of other things. Yes, make sure you submit your form when you are done with it. It has to be submitted for us to be able to collate all that information. If we could just talk briefly about next steps.
And then we'll let you keep talking.
And then we'll let you keep talking.
I'm gonna kick you out by like 9.
Oh, okay.
We are going to continue to engage the community. I know Sina has been reaching out, and will continue to reach out to our new American population. We are are we going to any more NPAs, Jim?
I presume so, yeah.
Go to some more NPAs and continue the conversation. Eric's been great about tweeting. I'm sure he'll continue that.
I would just like to put my voice out there to say I hope that starts having a presence at these meetings too. I think it's going to be really important that he starts building a different relationship with the community if he really wants something like this to go through. It's
Definitely.
like he just needs to have a better presence.
He did show up at the last meeting.
But I mean, just like out into the, there's 15 people here. I'm talking about out into the taxpayer community. I think there needs to be some kind of strategy to make that happen.
Okay, we can certainly give that.
And I will also be engaging students. I'm scheduled to talk at a community meeting of 11th graders. Yes, Mark?
I mean, y'all convened this committee to specifically be a community committee and not necessarily driven from district administration. You wanted this to be.
I want this to be
the-
cool.
You want to know, he wants to know what the community thinks. It doesn't mean that there won't also be a process to advocate or to share information about whatever comes out of this process, but this is like a process that's meant to inform the district on what the community would like to see in the new schools.
I understand, I'm talking about trying to convince the taxpayers to support it.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm talking, I'm not talking about here, I get that.
So part of the next steps will be that. And part of the next steps are, we're gonna compile all this information that we've done from these meetings and the meetings that we're gonna be having, and be writing a recommendation to the superintendent, which we hope to get to him by mid-January, so that the process can move forward from there.
We would also like to recommend that you go to the high school webpage. There's a page dedicated to the renovations. There will be updates there, information. You can sign up for a tour if you have not been in the high school of late. Please come and take a look at it. And share on social media. Get the word out. Any last comments or questions for the group at large, or for John or Marty, before we allow you to continue your
Is
conversation?
everything we're doing in these meetings going to be on the website as well?
Yes, yes. When we compile all the information, we will definitely let you know. Yes.
I think, for me, it'd be a very compelling slide if we had 3 or 4 options that the students would put together on what they think would look cool.
Okay.
Or what they want in their education, not just about look cool.
Yeah, that would be, we're gonna be definitely tapping into their energy, and I can say something about that too afterward, yeah.
The point I was going to make was, in spite of what a S-hole the current building is, I'm amazed by how much school spirit there is at that place.
Oh.
And, so I think it's a great place, and it could be a heck of a lot better.
Yes, I think we feel the same way. Absolutely, very good point. We did, it was our first night, let me just tell a very brief story. Our first night when we were over at Champlain School, we had 2 students from St. Michael's College there acting as journalists. They were going to write an article. And one of the young women happened to be someone who had gone through school renovation in her school. She didn't even tell us what state it's in or anything. But at one point, it segued nice into her talking about how she remembers being a junior, senior at that school and having, workmen come into her classroom because they had to fix some electrical thing, and how the student body took that in stride. This project became bigger than them, and they all were so excited about it, so on board, looking to the future as something they were giving their community, giving the generations that were coming up behind them. And she spoke so eloquently to that, because people were worried about what kind of a disruption this was going to have.
But not everybody's built like her, okay?
That's true. She was awesome, and I think, but at the same time,
I think most
those of us who know teenagers, they are incredibly compassionate. They have a lot of tolerance for change. They are creative and passionate, and I think they are going to be a great group of people for us to tap into, and also they will have wonderful ideas. So, yeah.
Are there, with the renovation plans, are there any contaminants that have to be worried about, like asbestos?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
in almost any option, because even if we
Yeah,
built
that's
new,
gonna
we
happen
still have
anyway.
to do something with the existing facility.
Okay.
And I can't remember, does the existing cost, the cost for the new building incorporate the demo for the old?
It does.
It does, okay.
Yeah. So, are there any other general questions like that one that might help people as they move out into the community? And
When are teachers gonna have an input?
when are teachers going to have an input? Tracy, is there anything set up right now to get teacher input?
Not specifically, but we would like to do this presentation for the teachers very soon. It'll be an option in an after-school meeting.
And I did do a very condensed 20-minute version of this at the lead teacher meeting.
Yep.
And they've given me feedback, and
Yeah.
I'm going to continue that.
Yeah, the structure that I'm supporting at the high school is that the lead teacher council gets information first before it goes out to the entire faculty, just to create that kind of structure. So that piece Kate has done. So now we'll bring it out to the faculty.
Thank you.
Talking to union?
Anything else?
Did I miss that you said something about student involvement in the design process?
Yes. Beta's going to be meeting with student groups to gather their feedback. And again, once we've chosen a design, there'll be many, many more meetings. You'll be invited to at least 50 more meetings later on.
Cool.
Be prepared.
Bring the cookies.
Yeah, when we get into the nitty gritty. So for now, make sure you finish up your form and you submit, and you can continue talking if you'd like, and we will take notes.
So,
Nice to meet you.